China, by contrast, was never engaged in sustained contact with another country on the basis of equality, for the simple reason that it never encountered societies of comparable culture or magnitude. That the Chinese Empire should tower over its geographical sphere was taken virtually as a law of nature, an expression of the mandate of heaven. For Chinese emperors, the mandate did not necessarily imply an adversarial relationship with neighboring peoples. Preferably, it did not. Like the United States, China thought of itself as playing a special role, but it never espoused the American notion of universalism to spread its values around the world. It confined itself to controlling the barbarians immediately at its doorstep. It strove for tributary states like Korea to recognize China's special status, and in return, it conferred benefits such as trading rights. As for the remote barbarians, such as Europeans, about whom they knew little, the Chinese maintained a friendly, if condescending, aloofness. They had little interest in converting them to Chinese ways. The founding emperor of the Ming dynasty expressed this view in 1372. Countries of the Western Ocean are rightly called distant regions. They come to us across the seas, and it is difficult for them to calculate the year and month of arrival. Regardless of their number, we treat them on the principle of those who come modestly are sent off generously. The Chinese emperors felt it was impractical to contemplate influencing countries that nature had given the misfortune of locating at such a great distance from China. In the Chinese version of exceptionalism, China did not export its ideas, but let others come to seek them. Neighboring peoples, the Chinese believed, benefited from contact with China and civilization so long as they acknowledged the suzerainty of the Chinese government. Those who did not were barbarian. Subservience to the emperor and observance of imperial rituals was the core of culture. When the empire was strong, this cultural sphere expanded. All Under Heaven was a multinational entity comprising the ethnic Han Chinese majority and numerous non Chinese ethnic groups. In official Chinese records, foreign envoys did not come to the imperial court to engage in negotiations or affairs of state. They came to be transformed by the emperor's civilizing influence. The emperor did not hold summit meetings with other heads of state. Instead, audiences with him represented the tender cherishing of men from afar, who brought tribute to recognize his overlordship. When the Chinese court deigned to send envoys abroad, they were not diplomats, but heavenly envoys from the celestial court. The organization of the Chinese government reflected the hierarchical approach to world order. China handled ties with tribute-paying states such as Korea, Thailand, and Vietnam through the Ministry of Rituals, implying that diplomacy with these peoples was but one aspect of the larger metaphysical task of administering the Great Harmony. With less Sinicized mounted tribes to the north and west, China came to rely on a court of dependencies, analogous to a colonial office, whose mission was to invest vassal princes with titles and maintain peace on the frontier. Only under the pressure of Western incursions in the 19th century did China establish something analogous to a foreign ministry to manage diplomacy as an independent function of government in 1861 after the defeat in two wars with the Western powers. It was considered a temporary necessity to be abolished once the immediate crisis subsided. The new ministry was deliberately located in an old and undistinguished building previously used by the Department of Iron Coins to convey, in the words of the leading Qing dynasty statesman Prince Gong, the hidden meaning that it cannot have a standing equal to that of other traditional government offices, thus preserving the distinction between China and foreign countries. European-style ideas of interstate politics and diplomacy were not unknown in the Chinese experience. Rather, they existed as a kind of counter-tradition taking place within China in times of disunity. But as if by some unwritten law, these periods of division ended with a reunification of all under heaven and the reassertion of Chinese centrality by a new dynasty. In its imperial role, China offered surrounding foreign peoples impartiality, not equality. It would treat them humanely and compassionately in proportion to their attainment of Chinese culture and their observance of rituals connoting submission to China.